Hi guys. Yeah, just back from a cycle there, and went well. Didn't have a heart attack, thank God. Touch wood. I was just worried about exercising because I'm once again on and off one pill, then another. It's all been very frustrating. I've been on, so I've halved it down. So 22.5 milligrams of Mirtazipine. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking a 45 milligram and I'm snapping it in half. And I've been on that for about, what is it now? 36 days. Yeah, 36 days. So over a month. I've been on it a total of 7 months. Started for the first 2 weeks on 15 milligrams, and then 36 days of that 7 months has been 22.5. And then the other time has been 30 milligrams. So 14 days on the 15 milligram and then 36 days on the 22.5. Just bear with me, guys. Head's not working like it should, which is another side effect. I feel like everything's quite slowed down at the minute, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here. So, again, I've had a lot of interaction with the channel, and I would love your experience down below. So let me know what your experience is like on SSRIs. And I'm just saying, a side note, I'm really happy to see one of the subscribers, um, Callum 1991. You're now putting your face up as well. Don't want to out you or anything, but I just noticed a change in you from when you started. Correct me if I'm wrong, Callum, but you seem a lot more confident. Massive thanks for all your donations, mate. I really appreciate it. Keep some for yourself, though. I don't want you to go bankrupt. So while I do appreciate it, it's also good to don't give what you can't. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Only what people can give. So just wanted to clear that up. And you've had some great input in medications, and I know you've already shared it with me. But I would like everyone to share as much as they can. About any mental health medication, not just SSRIs, which is, of course, the wonderful selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. I'm dozy, but I'm not too dozy to remember that. I've also been on propranolol, 80 milligrams, and I've been taking a whole tablet now for a week. Bang on. So it's been a week since my last swim, which you all know how that went. But if you don't, basically I start getting a real tight sensation in my chest. Like my muscles normally tense up after a cold water swim because it is cold. And what actually is happening, and I've researched the hell out of it to kind of know what's going on, is your body initially speeds up the heart rate. The heart rate goes up and starts thumping more because blood needs to go all around the body. Your circulation needs to improve because you're in freezing cold water. So the body needs to keep itself warm. Um, but as you start doing it more gradually, your body builds up an adaptation. It's kind of like what I think with muscles. So when we're actually lifting weights and we're building muscles, if you can't see, show off. I don't have very good biceps, but I have worked them out. But trust me on that one. But what you're actually doing is you're tearing the muscle, you create micro tears in it, and then you have to build it up. That's why you have to eat protein, because if you don't, you're not going to create protein synthesis, which means that you're not going to build the muscle back up stronger. Um, but that's also why with testosterone being low, you can't build as much muscle, which is why athletes take steroids, anabolics. That is exogenous testosterone. But enough on that anyway. It's basically just something that has made me feel good, and kept me on the straight and narrow. I feel like maybe this week I've been a bit harsh to a few different people, and you guys always keep me saying, you always remind me of what's important in life, and have been probably harsh on my loved ones a little bit. So thanks for helping me see that, guys. I just feel like the things that I need to usually do to stay well, I couldn't do this week. So I haven't been swimming in over a week. Well, not over a week, just 1 week, 7 days. But I also couldn't play football on Monday, which is a good release. There's been a few days now starting Monday where you get the Monday blues, you feel like shit, but having the football has really helped me, burn off some steam. I've also had a lot of job dissatisfaction, basically going through the role of the improved position that I'm going to be doing. And, you know, I've swept floors, I've washed dishes, I've mixed cement, dug holes, and all that crap. And yeah, look, it's tiring work, but kind of describing it to me, and I'm picking up dead animals in a alleyway, and I was, going to stick with it, but my mum said to me, which I think she's right in saying, I should have more pride in myself. And I think, yeah, what I've really noticed lately is, and the reason why I keep bringing up conflict is because I feel like my ability to deal with basic things has gone way down. My ability to manage situations has gone way, way down. And I hate the way doctors immediately blame the patient, not medication. And I want to just show other people's stories. And I want to just say, like Reddit, yeah, Reddit might not be the best and most reliable source, but it's people sharing stories, and everyone can't be lying on it. So I want to just share my screen with you now. People are asking, does this actually help? And I think it's important, especially being 7 months, like 2/3 of a year. Next month it'll be 2/3 of a year on this stuff. And I've been on 4 different SSRIs. I've talked about that before. Started Prozac when I was 14. Did not agree with me. It's actually the only SSRI where I've lost weight being on it, but that's because I couldn't eat. I felt sick when I ate. I had a lot of nervous energy, dysphoria, you might call it. But at the same time, I lost my libido. Like I couldn't ejaculate for 3 months. So I'll spare you the gory details on that. But when you're a young man, you're supposed to be in your sexual prime, and I definitely wasn't, you know. But I had all this anxiety and couldn't sleep properly, and still had to exercise to put myself to sleep. And it's not nice. It's quite nasty. So yeah, I want to just ask: do these things actually work? Because I don't think they do. And I've been talking about there being life reasons why I've felt the way that I have, and so I look at it here. So many people talk about the side effects of coming off SSRIs, but I want to hear success stories. Has anyone felt that after a period of medication, their nervous system actually learned to regulate itself better? Essentially, did the SSRIs act as a training wheel that left your neurochemistry permanently changed, improved, even after you stopped taking them? We look at oh, these are the replies now. I'm not going to leave one, but someone says here, yes, I was on them for 5 years, then I stopped taking them, and social anxiety is almost gone. Not completely, though. On SSRI, I literally could not feel shame or embarrassed, but still, compared to before, it's low. Also, depression is not as intense as before SSRI. My emotions are more stable than before. So, for sure, they do. For sure, they do stuff that doesn't go away when you stop, or at least it did for me. What one were you on? Sertraline, Hexel. That's Zoloft. I was on that as well. Um, I was on sertraline. I think Hexel is another one. Let's go through it here. The exact ones I took. I was on low dosage though. Apparently, I'm very sensitive to these kinds of substances. I was doing perfectly on 25 milligrams for 5 years. Can't imagine being on them that long. I was on and off, and they've certainly had an impact. But in the beginning, the doctor raised it to 50 milligram, and I ended up sleeping like 20 hours per day. So I went back to 25 milligram. That was the sweet spot for me. So yeah, I would consider myself sensitive to medication too, and I was on 150 milligram. And it's not a competition, but if you can imagine this person saying how sedated they felt, I know exactly how you feel and more, because the dose was higher. And so they mentioned sertraline there, so I want to just talk about that. And I've talked about it before, but I think it's important to bring it up. For me, and I think for a lot of people, exercise is very important for well-being. But I also had goals. I've really had to change my goals and bring them down to make them more realistic because I just wouldn't be able to achieve the ones that I had before. Whereas before I was fit, I worked really hard, I trained really hard. On sertraline, I was already overweight, I was already struggling big time, and I was playing rugby league at this stage because I kind of thought it was another avenue, as I hadn't really made it with rugby union. And I'd given a lot to the sport, so I thought maybe rugby league's another avenue, and I was training with the Ireland club rugby league squad. And I remember showing up for it and thinking that everybody else was in much better shape than me and getting the imposter syndrome that I always get. I remember thinking that everybody was probably going to judge me and be harsh on me. There were some lads that I played with and against there, and I was just kind of sticking with the lads that I played with, and the lads I played against, some of us, we didn't like each other. But in general, like when we did a Bronco run at the end, after doing the initial training, I pushed myself, and then actually the lads that I didn't get on with, they were pushing me as well and encouraging me and saying, "Well done, big man." And so that was encouraging. I actually did feel, look, I wasn't in great shape, but if I keep this up, I'll get in better shape. I'll be fitter. I'll be stronger. One thing that really affected me was the dry mouth, which people don't really talk about, but I drink gallons of water. What does that mean? You have to go to the toilet a lot. So sometimes that would happen during training, and there's not always a place to piss. I'd get really bad stomach problems as well, so I'd feel sick even without running. And in the Bronco test, I went from someone who was acing fitness tests. I used to be competitive with myself. I wasn't naturally the fittest fella. This isn't to make myself up. In fact, it's the opposite. I'm saying that a lot of lads were more gifted than I was, but I always wanted to achieve and I always pushed myself. And these tablets have a serious impact on your stomach, and they have had one on mine. I'm already sensitive to gastrointestinal issues anyway because I'm autistic, and that's one of the parts of it. The many joys of it. Um, but I started puking, and yet I kept running. Even though I was getting sick, I would get sick, run, get sick again, keep running. If you're at that stage, even if you're behind everybody else, you are pushing yourself as much as you physically can. And how many people would do that? You know, um, and everybody could see it. A lot of the coaches that were there, they were tough lads, but they understood when people were taking the piss and not pushing themselves, and when people were genuinely taking it upon themselves to, keep going and not give up, not give in, you know. And even though it was disheartening finishing second last, only one fella finished last after me. And I had been, as I say, one of the fittest players in previous teams. So it was really disheartening. But at the same time, I pushed myself and I kind of felt like, okay, great, I'll go back next week and it'll be better. I'll be better. Halfway through the session, I was fucked. I couldn't give any more. And then I thought, no, I'm going to keep going. And whenever I get a chance to stand and get a break, I'll take it. And then they said at the end we were doing another Bronco run. And I was already done. I thought I'll die if I do this, so I'll take an injury, which I did. And yeah, told them I couldn't go back. And I kind of felt like shit, really felt bad. But before this, when I asked the doctor, and I said to him how I was feeling, I'd shown up to him before with the head injury, which I don't know if I really had it. I wasn't very fit in the game. I did hit my head, and it was a concern that I had that I was going to injure my head. Me and my brother have had that for a while. We've always had a fear of getting a bad head injury, and there's a lot of fear mongering around concussions, and we definitely had that. But he didn't really read between the lines, and if you ever watch Niall Brezzy talking about strapping his own arm to a chair and breaking it so he didn't have to play a rugby game. And the doctor saying it's just hormones or teenage angst, I think is what he called it. You'll understand how badly equipped they are even now. Like you think we've come so far, but we obviously haven't. I told him about this trial coming up and what did he think? And he knew how much medication I was on because he was the one prescribing it. I'd been in his office bawling my eyes out. And he just went and put me straight back on the Prozac. And I said, no, that fucked me up. And he goes, okay, sertraline then, Zoloft. The other name for Prozac is fluoxetine, FYI. But when I asked him about that rugby trial, he said, oh, you should definitely go, but don't expect anything from yourself. Instead of going, you're in no fit state to do this, I wouldn't do it if I were you. It's up to you. But personally, I wouldn't recommend it. I had so much feelings of guilt and shame. So I was like, I have to go, whether I want to or not. I have to fucking go, you know. But I was in no state to do it. Looking back, actually pushing through made me feel worse because I felt like all these lads are so much fitter than me and I'm not fit enough, and it's embarrassing, you know. We have compostable. I'm in the middle of a multi-year taper, but I found that emotion started coming back when I hit 37.5 milligram sertraline, started at 100. I actually feel happiness, sadness, anger, etc. Again, felt extremely uncomfortable for months and kind of still does, but it ultimately feels much better than just being numb all the time. Definitely a double-edged sword, though. Double-edged sword. Jeez, sorry, my eyes are all over the place. It's definitely a double-edged sword, though. It's a lot easier to just be numb all the time and not really care about much. I still have times when I just want to go back to the full dose and surrender so I don't have to actually face anything. But I really want to be free from this drug. It's been way too long. Right around the time I hit 37.5 milligram, my wife also started commenting on it. She said I became much more emotionally available, more supportive, less rigid in my thinking, and more capable of listening. Survivingantidepressants.org has a success story section, but these stories can be hard to find as many people who successfully stopped don't tend to hang around on such sites anymore. And I might actually check that out afterwards. So they say, wow, never knew about this site. Sad that that's is ending. Okay. I hope there are truly good alternatives that will continue to prosper. I read their farewell message. Maybe they have changed the industry awareness on withdrawal in Western countries, but at least Indonesia, it's terribly inadequate. Okay. Then they talk about fluoxetine, which is Prozac. This site has to be my saving grace. I'm in all of this madness. In all of this madness. I was on SSRIs for at least a decade and I've had the hardest time with withdrawal, but currently I'm down to about 3.4 milligrams of fluoxetine. It's still going to take another 2 years to come all the way off, and I feel so much more like a human being again. Before, I just felt numb all the time until I would collapse or explode. Hey, I'm also slowly quitting. Could I message you privately, please? Okay. That's awesome. I'm at 27 milligrams of sertraline right now, and it took about 1.5 years to get there. Dropping from 37.5 to 25 was a disaster, and I had to hold there for about 6 months so I could stabilize. Then I started a hyperbolic taper to 27, and I've been holding here for a couple of months. Best case, it's going to take another 4 years. Realistically, probably more like 6 years with some halls when things get dicey. I hate this timeline, but it's really my only choice to avoid the worst of the withdrawal symptoms. I know the timeline is grueling, but you're so right because anytime I've tried to push it, it is complete total hell. Yeah, and the more I look at it, the more I'd recommend that you just taper off gradually, which is what I'm doing now. It's frustrating, but if you just stop, you can cause a brain injury. And I'm actually going to show you a website that I look at, board certified psychiatrist, Joseph Whitduring. So, Australian lad living in the US, and his channel is the Taper Clinic. And I'll show you because he medically knows how to help people withdraw. And if you gradually come off, you have to look at half lives of your medications as well. Basically, the longer the half life, the lower the dose, usually because the drug will stay in your system longer and can have more negative impacts. Drugs that have a shorter half life, they'll usually give you a higher dose. So, venlafaxine is usually a high dose of medication, and my brother's on that. My brother takes that, so it's a slower or it has a short half life or a shorter one anyway than fluoxetine or Lexapro, which is why they give such a high dose to have a therapeutic effect. So then we just see here, eat my nuts on a Wednesday. What a channel name or what a handle. Thank you very much for your story and subs and for the sub recommendation. I will ask there. I'm also on sertraline with 25 milligram. I still haven't recovered from the brain fog and anhedonia after nearly 4 months from 50 milligram to 25. I wish you the best. Edit. Oh, it's a website. Still, thanks. So I don't know about a hyperbolic taper, but here's they're talking about it. Consider a hyperbolic taper if you're getting symptoms. See Mark Horowitz. These drugs don't occupy receptors linearly, so we should not taper them linearly. A hyperbolic taper takes a long time, but it mitigates withdrawals. Unfortunately, it's mostly a DIY effort, as 99% of doctors have no idea about it because they're not trained, mostly not interested in getting patients off drugs. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So I presume when you're saying hyperbolic taper, you mean like what I'm doing. I'm going down in 7.5 milligrams, and I'm doing it slowly because otherwise, as you say, get some seriously negative side effects. But this I like. I really agree with this statement so much. They're not trained in it and they don't care. And they're very much, when you go to a doctor, what they're going to say is, okay, you're on this medication. And when a side effect happens, they don't go, oh, well, that's part of the medication. I've had to say it to them, isn't that just a side effect of the medication? Because I've researched it. Oh, no, 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 no. And then they'll say you have something else and then prescribe another medication. So even the fact that I'm on Provigil because I feel drowsy in the mornings, I take that. It's a mild stimulant. And I've taken it before driving because I'm afraid I'm going to crash the fucking car if I don't, because I'm very dozy. Mornings are rough, as I've talked about before. And I was on clonidine cataprase, which is a blood pressure medication. I was on a very low dose, I should say, 100 micrograms. But then seeing the psychiatrist, she said that mirtazipine can block the blood pressure lowering effects of clonidine. And I'm like, well, why the fuck am I being prescribed it then? You know, like she's a pleasant lady, she's nice to deal with, but she really isn't filling me with much confidence. And the fact that I've had 8 different psychiatrists since going in, you feel awkward enough as it is, and then they're saying, "Oh, you were on this medication," and I'm kind of sitting there going, I haven't been on that medication in 2 months, or even longer with some." So I've also had a GP say, "Oh, you're on this medication." I said, "No, I stopped taking it," and he's like, "How do you think that makes me feel as your primary carer when I think you're on a medication and Then you tell me you're not. How can I help you then? And I'm kind of like, yeah, well, I don't really care how you feel. I'm not being funny there, you know, but you need to help me. And the same fella told me I was wasting, or well, he didn't tell me I was wasting his time, but he said, I don't see how what you're saying is relevant. So upon advice I got from a website, I researched some odd behaviours, and I also got my family to list what they thought was odd to see if I could get it or if I needed a different diagnosis. And I've made a huge effort not to self-diagnose because you can read up on everything and say, oh, I have this, I have X, or I have Y. So I've tried saying, do I have these symptoms? Is this something I genuinely go through? And I've really tried not to push it. And then when I did say the symptoms related to different conditions, the psychiatrists or doctors will say, why didn't you say that before? Or they'll kind of go, oh, yes, yes. And then you really have to force the issue, is what I'm getting at here. And they don't seem to want to do it for you. You know, they seem to kind of just hold back. If you don't say anything, they'll just write you another script for another medication. And then if that doesn't work, oh, we'll try another one. Then we'll try another one. If you get any negative side effects, then we'll prescribe you a medication for that. And I've never met anyone who was healthy who was on multiple different medications. You know, obviously not, because they're on multiple different medications. Healthy people don't take medications. But this world's becoming increasingly reliant on pharmaceuticals, and they have some seriously negative impacts. So I eat my nuts on Wednesday. Why Wednesday? I don't know. But I just found that I reduced my dose to 33% and then after to 50%. No wonder I have such a bad time. Next time I know better. Thanks. I'm detoxing from Lexapro as we speak, and I'm going to let you know. Elegant cockroach. Is there such a thing? They're sturdy fuckers, cockroaches. They could survive a nuclear blast, but elegant, I'm not too sure. I've detoxed from Lexapro as well. Basically, I just finished my dose of it and then came off it because I was working away in a takeaway. So, you know, a restaurant takeaway, and I was on a low dose, and then I went up. So I went from 5 milligrams of Lexapro to 10, and then I went up all the way to 20, and really bad migraines. You know, I got really tight eyes, and I would work 7 or 8 hour shifts, sometimes 9 hours, and it's in a very hot kitchen. So I was drinking a lot of water because I got really bad dry mouth and really bad diarrhea. And I won't go into detail, but you can read between the lines. But as I've said before, and Callum, you had some really interesting thoughts on that, and I thought you were right. I'm not making up these side effects; they're happening to me. You know, I didn't have the diarrhea before going on the medication. Now I have it, so the medication must be causing it. But that's refusing medication due to citing intolerable side effects. It's really worded in a way of, oh, he says that he has negative side effects, but we don't really believe him. You know, it's kind of like, well, what do you want us to do for you if you refuse the medication because you're making up side effects? And my response to that would just be, if the medication is making me feel good and there is very limited side effects, or if the reward is more than the risk and I'm feeling better on these than I was off them, why the fuck would I not take them? If they're making me feel better, why the fuck would I not take them? You know, they fail to realize that a lot of us have self worth, and if we can't work in a job or we can't exercise like we used to, and you're not telling us that we should give up something or to take it easier on ourselves, then we're going to just say, well, fuck this then. You know, I want to be able to play rugby. I want to be able to run. I want to be able to lift weights. I want to be able to do the things I used to do to help me feel normal. There's no use in me sitting indoors all day like a fucking vegetable doing nothing, you know, not contributing anything, not able to work. And it's probably why I've been very angry recently because I feel like I'm getting worse. I've built up a lot of social skills. I've built up the ability to advocate for myself and look after myself and be headstrong and not take no for an answer. Does not come to me naturally, and it makes me overwhelmed. And I feel like almost a body and mind disconnection. You know, like the event is happening, but I'm not present for the event. I'm miles away. I'm dissociating like fuck, and it's not getting any easier. It's getting harder. This is an interesting one by trade in Florida. I took an SSRI for 14 years and just finally got off completely. Tapering down is pretty annoying because like 14 fucking years. Though I'm not far off. I mean, I haven't been on them consistently, but I've been on and off medication since I was 14. So that's 13 years. But they're taking it for 14. So whether they took it consistently, I don't know. But either way, I don't like the sound that I don't like being told I have to be on this probably for the rest of my life because these drugs have very negative side effects. So I'll read it again from Trade in Florida. I took an SSRI for 14 years and just finally got off completely. Tapering down is pretty annoying because no matter how slow I went, I had about 4 weeks of misery. What you will do after 14 years, unfortunately, you're gonna have built up a tolerance to the medication. And once you come off that, your body's going to be used to it. It's like any drug, unfortunately, when you build up a tolerance to it, coming off it, your body becomes quite dependent, unfortunately. I have anxiety just as bad, if not worse. I never had depression until I actually tried coming off an SSRI. Yeah, and I can relate completely. I don't recommend them to anyone. They numb you and wreck your hormones. In men, they significantly lower your testosterone, which causes estrogen dominance, which has all sorts of fun side effects. I bet it does on its own. I am on testosterone therapy because after 4 years of an SSRI, my testosterone was 190 nanogram per deciliter. The healthy range for a grown man is 200 to 1000 nanogram per deciliter. FYI, in case you wonder. Anything over that, if it's just over, you're kind of not too concerned. But if it's under it, or at the lower end, then you can have problems like infertility, stomach fat, difficulty building muscle, low motivation as well, kind of bitchy and moody, because your hormones are out of whack. It's the male dominant hormone, and we need it for a reason. And I said this to a doctor before, and he said it has no effect on testosterone. Don't worry. I thought he's just saying that. I know it does because I've been lower in energy, sex drive, and as someone who was always exercised, and food is my Achilles heel. Look at me, this turkey neck. I'm a chubster. I've always been a fat fuck, unfortunately, and but I've been a fit fat fuck, fit fat fuck. The three Fs. My dad used to have a thing called the 5F rule, and I won't tell you what that means. It's very graphic. Some sound advice from your father there. But yeah, I fail you trade in Florida because I said the exact same thing. And when I brought it up with the doctor, I was like, I have no sex drive whatsoever, which low sex drive is attributed to low testosterone. Surely, like if your testosterone was fine, you would not have no sex drive. Sometimes I'm wondering how I exercised because I still had some sort. I guess it was negative energy, and I used it in a good way. But when people were in their sexual prime, not only did I not have the sex drive, I just didn't understand why they were so obsessed with it because I didn't have it. I said it to the lads in school because I didn't know any better, and I was comparing it to my mates. And to get a bit derogatory and not derogatory, but graphic, they were like, I have to have at least one wank every day because this is from 15 to 18, 19 year olds, whereas I was saying I only have one a week, you only masturbate once a week and you're a young man, there's something wrong with you. And it's not as if I was, having a lot of girls with me. I was terrible with the ladies, still am, but it's not as if I was, how do I put this without sounding really graphic, but spilling my seed. But yeah, I understand completely where you're from, and I've researched this, and I can back up what you're saying. Oh, we'll do it with some facts because you can take my word for it, but let's look at facts afterwards. It does cause hormone imbalance, and the longer you're on it, the worse it's going to get, and then the harder it is to come off it. So it says here, find a life purpose, eat healthy, exercise, get in therapy, and solve your problems the best you can. I can tell you from experience, all synthetic drugs wreak havoc on your body. Medical industry wants more victims that won't fix the core problems and just take a pill. Exactly. They don't want you to question them. They want you on as much drugs as possible. Their incentive is to sell you pills. And it's not just big bad America. There's a lot of countries like this. So people think that just happens in America. No, because every time I ever mention that a drug is causing a problem in my body, they go, no, 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 it wouldn't be that. Like, only recently, I had a blood test done before Christmas, and I was talking about this, but the psychiatrist was saying that my liver enzymes were high, which is not good, not dangerously high. They never give you the actual numbers. I said, "Oh, is it something to be concerned about?" And she's like, "No, no, no. It's not that high. It's just over the healthy range." And I'm going to request the results so that I have a copy, and then I'm going to request the results from my GP. I have another appointment with the psychiatrist in 5 weeks, just under 5 weeks actually. So definitely go through it then, and I can discuss the propranolol as well. But my cholesterol will be elevated. I was told that before going on mirtazipine. So yeah, that's not good either. So my blood pressure was raised. Higher cholesterol means higher fatty deposits in your blood vessels or your arteries. Your veins and arteries start building up with fatty deposits, which means that the blood has a narrower gap to go through. So if you think about it, the gap just narrows like that, meaning the heart has to pump harder to get the blood through. And as a result, you've higher blood pressure, hypertension, which is what I have now, and that's why I had to wear the blood pressure monitor. But when I said the hypertension, the higher cholesterol, and the liver enzymes being elevated not be a result of the medication that you've prescribed me, because you've literally just said that they have an impact on that. And then she was like, no, 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 it wouldn't be that. And I was like, you've literally just said it. Now you're backtracking. you know. But then she prescribed propranolol and asked me how much I wanted. And at that stage, I was so overwhelmed, I thought, give me the higher dose because I just want something to make me not feel as fucking anxious and tense as I already do. Anyway, amen to that. Sushi Natsu. Amen to that. Pharmaceuticals are not for me. They wreak havoc on your body in so many ways that doctors don't even warn you about. Amen to that, indeed. Can I ask how you managed to get through the final taper? I'm at 3.4 milligrams of fluoxetine, Prozac, dropping by 5% each time, and I still have those 4 weeks of misery, like not sleeping for days, choking on anxiety type of misery. Yeah. Trade in Florida says it was not easy. The lower the dose, the more you decline your serotonin reuptake, meaning the less pleasure you feel. Taking it slow like you are doing is helpful. You will get there. You also have a heightened anxiety levels for a while until your nervous system recalibrates. Baseline anxiety may still show up. Start using other strategies the best you can. Meds don't cure anxiety, in my experience. Exercise, healthy diet, start learning coping strategies and or CBT. Use AI like ChatGPT to help guide you on options besides drugs that wreck your endocrine system. Read books, follow psychologists, and put work into it. I force myself to exercise, eat well, and learn anything I can for self improvement. Doctors are not trained thoroughly on side effects or drug withdrawal, so people become dependent on these drugs while they slowly deteriorate physically, and then they will give another drug to treat the side effects. Exactly what I've been saying, 100%. And disturbingly, they prescribe these SSRIs to children, and the drugs impact GNRH. I think GABA norepinephrine receptor hormone release in the brain. I think that's what they're talking about here. But I will look it up. Releasing the brain and other hormone signaling, potentially causing permanent damage and stunted growth. Fuck all of that. I'm not a genius, but I've learned so much about SSRIs over 14 years of suffering and researching. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree more with what you've said there. Florida, trade in Florida. While you're on all this shit and it's not helping you out up here, it's causing damage all around the body. I was actually on a weight loss journey and I was losing weight. I lost 3.4, just like your dose of medication, 3.4 kilos in 3 months. So I was going in the right direction. It was slowing down, but I expected that because I've done it before. Then, it's, I'd been to a funeral. My mate's mum, Noel, my mate Noel's mum, Deborah, RIP, lovely woman. She died, and I know it's his mum, so I can only imagine how he feels. The fact that I'd only seen her in December, and then she was dead around April, May. I was kind of like, fuck. It kind of made me start thinking about life, in what's the meaning of all this. And then I had a date that day as well. And then, even though the date went well, I kind of felt upset. It was kind of like, oh, this won't last, or what's the meaning of life? Then, we weren't really serious. So, fair enough. You can see other people. She told me about it, but I kind of felt like, oh, there's another waste of my time. That's when it really all kind of kick started. But yeah, no, it's a hard one. Being on these things for the rest of your life is not good for anyone. I haven't heard anyone say that it's good being on them for their whole life. You gain a lot of weight. You live like a hermit, basically. You stop seeing people. Your lust for life basically goes down the shitter. And then Sushi Nyatsu says, haha, I get it. Everything I've had to learn is on my own because doctors don't take me seriously when I talk about withdrawal. They just tell me I need more meds. Yeah, I fucking know what you're talking about. And if people who don't know each other, like if I don't know them, they don't know me, and we're saying the exact same thing, doesn't that tell you something? That should worry us. And the only way that we're going to educate people is by sharing our stories because unfortunately the medical industry don't give a shit. And the ones that do give a shit aren't medically trained. So if they decide, I don't like you being on this, but they take you off it, they could be done for medical negligence. So if they're not trained on how to take you off it safely, we've got a recipe for disaster because anyone who does care and doesn't want you on these drugs is in the minority to begin with, but they're also not medically trained. So they don't actually know. Their training is give this person a pill for this condition. And then if they have side effects from that pill, give them another pill for that, and then another pill, another pill. It's like Officer. I am Officer Pleakley. Officer Pleakley in Lilo and Stitch when the mosquitoes start biting them. another, another one, another one. They like me. They like me. They're. And he gets bitten by the mosquitoes that he thinks are endangered species. But yeah, as they say here, they just tell me I need more meds. I didn't know rectal endocrine system so much though. Explains a lot for me and me. 100%. I'll have to start looking more into into that side of things. Me too. I will. Edit also. Did you have to avoid caffeine? It sends me to the moon. Uh, I've cut down to 2 cups of coffee a day because, yeah, I do drink a lot of caffeine. I've always loved caffeine, but you're gonna have to be careful on it. We've got compostable again saying which drug were you on and what starting dose? How long did the taper take? A lot of questions. A lot of good ones though. I'm coming off about 20 years on sertraline. Fucking hell. 20 years is a long, long time. Been hyperbolic tapering for about 1.5 years and I'm still at 27 milligrams. It will take me another 4 to 6 years to finish at this rate. Sometimes I just want to give up. I know how you fucking feel compostable. I feel compostable at times, like I'm just rotting away. It's hard enough now, and I haven't even got to the actual hard part yet. And sertraline is only available in 20 milligrams per mil liquid. So I kind of have no idea how I'll measure super small doses when I get there. I'm curious how you did it. Um, I've never actually seen it in liquid form, to be honest with you. I've always taken the pill. It's a round tablet that you take. Um, and in fairness to sertraline, I think it actually did seem to help me at first, and for a while. I just think it was the doctor not being more specific. Don't expect anything. Let yourself get better, and don't be playing any high contact sports, which is rugby. you know, could have put my mind at ease by saying that because I need to hear this stuff. I won't be the type to give myself a break. I'll just keep pushing and pushing until I physically break down. Sorry, because I think of myself as worthless if I can't keep up. You know, which is why we need stories like this. So we need to help people out. I'm not a medical professional, but this is just hearing people's stories, and I will show you someone who is a medical professional with some sound advice on how to taper off gradually. But just listen to that 20 years, and then it's going to take another 4 to 6 years to finish. I understand why you want to give up compostable because I feel for you, I really do. That'll basically be nearly my whole lifetime that has taken you to quit an SSRI. And if you're quitting it, it's obviously not doing a good job. It's obviously having a lot of negative impacts. So clearly, this isn't me just blowing everything out of proportion. It's clearly not having a good impact. Like I always blame myself just on the side now before I finish on this little article, but I was always like, oh, well, you drank on Prozac, fluoxetine, so it's your own fucking fault. And in many ways, yeah, but I was already up to here with anxiety and it made it worse. My anxiety was already sky high and this stuff made it worse. And then on a holiday with my dad, I was kind of ignoring people. I wasn't very sociable. I had a difficult time putting myself out and making new friends. I just didn't have the social skills or the wherewithal to do it. And then alcohol, alcohol gave me the confidence and the relief from anxiety that these drugs were supposed to give me. And I just, as a 15 or as a 14 or 15-year-old, you're just thinking, whatever gives me instant relief, you're more impulsive, your brain's not developed as much. And personally, I feel like 14 is too young. I feel like you should wait till at least 18 to prescribe any sort of SSRI medication. You should look at the home life. Anyone who looked at my home life would have seen that it was far from ideal. And if teachers had actually bothered to look into that and seen, they would have easily seen that home life was a struggle, but they didn't really bother. The few that did, my gratitude will be forever for them, but they didn't know the full extent. They were catching me at a difficult time and trying to help. Mr. Cronin and Mr. Kelly. Big shout out to you guys. Really, they noticed and they helped me out when I needed it. So I really appreciate them. Very few others though, and unfortunately, I ended up and I'm still a slave to this medication. So I feel you. I feel all of you guys. Not in a creepy way, but in a empathetic way. So Compostable says, I'm lucky that my testosterone is still in good shape, but I've paid a lot of attention to pro metabolic eating and lifestyle choices in the last few years. My thyroid could probably use some support, which I'm working on. Have you seen Chris Masterjohn's work on SSRIs and metabolic health? You might be interested. It's a multi part series. This is just one part. It's very science heavy and sometimes hard to follow if you don't have that background, but interesting nonetheless. I'll have to check that out because I definitely will be interested. And there it is there. If anyone wants to check it out. Color crazed. I would say yes. Was on sertraline for 2 years and I'm off now for a month. I bounce between 25 and 75 milligrams, so fairly low dose. Yeah, because I would have been on double that dose. Definitely felt more sedated for sure. But it made a huge difference. It gave my nervous system a new baseline for for was calm can feel like. Okay. I really do think it helped me develop new neural pathways and helped me retrain my brain into healthier ways. So it helped me retrain my brain into healthier ways of thinking and coping. I was stuck pretty bad before I got on them with intense rumination, but now I'm fine. I still get upset, anxious, stressed out from time to time, and a lot of Reddit tells me I'm in for a bit of whiplash in a few months. But also, life as a human has intense ups and downs, and I feel a lot more equipped to handle them now. So I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll sort it out. I'm glad I'm over the hump. No, I'm glad I'm over the hump, though. Sorry, I'm glad I'm over the hump. I'm not over the hump. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm over the hump, though. Okay, and it's this question: anyone feel rewired for the better? All right. We might actually. Sorry, I'll just check that website out that they put up earlier because that might be very helpful. So we'll have a look at that. Let's go into survivingantidepressants.org. And this is people sharing their story. So I think this would be very helpful for people. And it'll be going to read only on January the 31st. What a time to find out about it. Get your questions in ASAP because it's going out of date soon. In just over 1 week, it'll be gone. It'll just be read only. Welcome to survivingantidepressants.org. We are a community of volunteers providing peer support for tapering all psychiatric drugs and their withdrawal syndromes. This site is organised in forums containing topics developed over many years of peer support. Here's a list of the forums on this site. As this content is patient authored, it should not be taken as medical advice, but information that you can discuss with your medical provider. If they'll listen, which we hope they will. So here we are. I'm looking for information about tapering a psychiatric drug. Where should I start? Why taper by 10% of my dosage? Keep it simple, slow and stable. Never skip doses to taper. Taper. Losing my voice. FAQs and tips for tapering a specific drug. How to calculate dosages and dilutions, spreadsheets and calculators. Managing the endgame taper. Taking multiple psych drugs. Which drug to taper first? Sometimes you should taper one instead of the other and start with that drug. I am taking several. Okay, I'm looking for information about tapering a psychiatric drug. Where should I start? Okay. I might have a look at this properly myself. I am taking several psychiatric drugs, psychotropic medications. Which one should I taper first? How can I work with a doctor to go off my drugs? I'm not sure about their advice. Yeah, okay. Do I have withdrawal symptoms? What is withdrawal syndrome? Daily checklist of antidepressant withdrawal symptoms, PDF, relapse or withdrawal. And I recently reduced or stopped my drug. I think I have withdrawal symptoms. What should I do? Reinstating and stabilizing to reduce withdrawal symptoms. How long does it take to stabilize after reinstating or updosing? Hypersensitivity. What should I do if I what should I do if I have withdrawal symptoms? Is there anything I can do to relieve my withdrawal? I'm not sleeping. What can I do? Magnesium, nature's calcium blocker, calcium channel blocker. And magnesium deficiency can cause eye twitching, but eye twitching and muscle spasms is also something that can be caused by mirtazipine, the drug that I'm on. And apparently 15 milligram is more sedating than 30 milligram and even 45. So just something to be aware of on the drug that I'm on. I've reduced my drug and I'm struggling with my emotions. What can I do? Yeah, so there's a lot of shit here. This one's a nasty one. Derealization or depersonalization where you don't feel real, um, you don't feel like you're actually present in the room. And I've gotten that before myself. Very hard to explain other than you feel completely disconnected from your mind and body. The best way I can describe it. It's almost like everything is too much, so I need to zone out. It's like you're watching yourself from a movie screen or, in the third person. You're watching yourself moving around. It's like dissociation, but in a severer form. Apathy. So apathy is not caring, and I think we all struggle with this if we've been on an SSRI or struggle with depression, emotional numbness and emotional anesthesia. So what does an anesthetic do? It numbs, so your emotions are numbed. That's how I would think about that. I know it sounds like a tricky word, but it's basically just not being able to feel your emotions, which is shit. Non-drug techniques to cope with emotional symptoms. There's a lot here. We won't have time to go through all of it. I will go through it maybe one day before the website stops and becomes a read only. And I might register as well. We see what some people are saying. Maybe that might help. I always like to hear what people have said. Kind of helps you realise you're not alone. So then we have another link to a website. Surviving antidepressants, drug withdrawal. All right. Yeah, that's an important one. None of this is medical advice. I'm not a doctor. People on this aren't, but if you hear my voice, it's because my mouth is so dry. Okay. I have to check this out another time myself. Well, we're obviously very happy about Alto Strata, the administrator. You do a damn good job. Some kind words there. best support site on the web, a new Dutch support group, Claudius. Hamlet's uncle, the bad guy. There he is. Nah, it's just a name. Reduce paroxetine slowly by skipping a tablet each few days, as long as this information is still okay. Yeah, 10% reduction instead of stopping altogether. And taking half a tablet was what I was advised to do for my propranolol, but it's in a capsule. So there's powder in the capsule. How do you half that? Really, difficult enough to do. So I was thinking of taking it every second day, but obviously, from what Claudius has said there, it's not the best with his medication, paroxetine, benzo putties. I feel this comment. I'm still feeling very let down by my doctor. I can't always read much in one go, but knowing I'm not alone is a great comfort for me. Thank you for just being here. Brilliant, groundbreaking site, very important and absolutely vital. So important to have somewhere that recognises prolonged withdrawal too. Many thanks. That's one for a nice donation there. And there's a tip there for tapering off different drugs. Recently, I've had some requests for statistics about this site. To date, we have about 10,000 registrations with about 300 current active members. The following is from Google Search Console for survivingantidepressants.org, showing where our members come from over the last 3 months. The US, Canada, UK, and Australia are prominently represented. But we have members from everywhere in the world. Yeah, couple from Ireland there. There's a lot of Indian people. There's a lot more Indian people than there is Irish people, so we're doing all right. We have a lot of our own problems, definitely. But yeah, it's predominantly the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Ireland. Ironically, also the demographic that mostly watches my channel. What does that tell you? Those countries are clearly suffering. And then obviously the fact that I am Irish, but they can actually understand me. Though most of you don't read subtitles, so that's good to know. Thank you for that. Maybe some of you are just pretending you can understand. So you kind of get the point. I think if I get into this too much, I'll go down a rabbit hole explaining stuff. So I'll just get out of this now, but that is the website right there. Survivingantidepressants.org. It'll become read only from the 31st of January, and it's not for medical advice necessarily, but I think it definitely helps, to know that you're not alone, and actually hearing someone who's gone through the same struggle as opposed to someone with the qualification and a degree. That will definitely help. So just going to look up another one and share my screen then with you. So just to clarify, I wanted to look up the GnRH, which is gonadotropin releasing hormone. So I got it wrong. GABA norepinephrine receptor hormone. I had a feeling the H was for hormone, but Gonads being your testicles, of course. So GnRH is inhibited by testosterone. The peptide belongs to the gonadotropin releasing hormone. You can just have a look at there, the basic understanding and its function. Okay, so you can read through that if you want. There's more articles, I'm sure, on that. And we'll see if there are just any good ones. There are plenty. Andrew Huberman, the Cleveland Clinic, Britannica. Okay. I want to just show you someone who also has a page dedicated to helping you get off medication. Joseph Mengele. Now, I'll go look at him up. Jesus, that's, oh yeah, brilliant. Wonderful role models there. So we've got Joseph Mengele, Joseph Fritzl, Joseph Stalin, Joseph Pushka, all four absolute bastards. Um, don't go looking to them for help. No, it's this guy. Yeah, definitely go look, check them out. So this is the man I'm talking about. Joseph Wittdering, board certified psychiatrist. There he is, with his wife launching one of the only medical practices in the world dedicated to exclusively treating psychiatric drug injury and guiding patients through safe deprescribing. And it might seem like he's kind of, at first, the vaccines cause autism, but he knows what he's doing. And he's not saying stop immediately. He's saying, I can help you and you should be aware of the side effects. If the medication helps you, fine. I'm not telling you to get off it, but I'm merely saying that you should be aware of all the side effects. And I think that's perfectly worded. I think that's exactly what you should be saying. And that's what doctors should be saying. You should be aware of all the side effects before you start anything, any drug, you know. But they just hand you the box, expect you to read all the side effects on the label, which I fucking do. And then when you say, oh, I'm having this effect that wasn't there before, I got a rash on my arm. Now my brother gets really bad eczema. I have never suffered with eczema in my life. And then I start getting a really bad rash here. And this is before I had the wherewithal to research Prozac. What did my GP say? He was known me since I was a child, so he'll know that I have never suffered with eczema ever. He just said, that's a type of eczema. Here's a cream for it. Not, oh, well, that might be caused by this medication, Prozac, which it absolutely can be. A lot of these medications can cause skin rashes and I have gotten them. Like I'm getting one here in my face. Now I thought that was from sea swimming. Maybe it is the salt water, but the doctors certainly aren't bringing anything up or trying to help me with side effects. So this man here will help you out, definitely. And you can also see stories that people have shared on his channel on YouTube, the Taper Clinic. That lovely smile. He's also worked in the pharmaceutical industry and was dependent on benzos. So he knows how negative they can be firsthand. So you can read through all his credentials there. I won't go through it all, but remember as well. And I'll just show you his YouTube channel, which I've watched a lot of. It's easy to say that he's fear mongering, but I think more so he is educating. You should definitely be aware on the side effects, and doctors are not making us aware. So, Dr. Joseph. There's so many bad Josephs out there, isn't there? He's one of the good ones. Yes. Let's see. And this is the channel. Cannabis is more dangerous than you think. It's not just talking about psychiatric drugs. He's also saying be careful of recreational drug use. And there he is. That's his channel. And I think if you need to look up anything and see or hear stories, watch the whole video. He's also talking about the trends. So different celebrities promoting the wellness illusion, as well as Jordan Peterson's benzo addiction, which in fairness, Jordan Peterson's been very open about, and he's saying that it's caused a brain injury. And I find Jordan Peterson is an empathetic person, and it really could have been down to seriously negative withdrawals from benzos, which are meant to be worse than opioids from withdrawal. So it's all educational, and he doesn't simply say get off that drug. He says, here's what you should be aware of. And then AI versus human doctor, they don't always get it right, the AI doctors, and becoming dependent on AI is definitely not a good idea. And then, like, I want to just talk about before I finish my side effects that I've noticed on this drug, mirtazipine. So I've actually been more anxious. This is supposed to be for my anxiety. So you can understand why I'm a little peeved with the doctors for putting me on something that has made my anxiety worse. When I started it as well, I was hopelessly depressed. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't function. I wasn't talking. My mum said I was sitting in the chair, just completely out of it, very low, the lowest she's seen me in a long time. Now, bear in mind as well, I literally went on them a day after sitting on a bridge wanting to kill myself. So it wasn't a great place to begin with. I accept that. And I drank alcohol as well. So we're not starting from a very good place. But before that, I was extremely anxious, very dysphoric, very agitated. And that's why I drank as much as I did. Just a lot of shit had gone wrong on June 20th, and it was a really bad day for me. So, or June 19th, as it would have been then, because I went to the doctor the day after. I'd actually booked an appointment for something else, but then thankfully I went to see her when I did, or so I thought. You go to the doctor with, thinking you're going to be relieved, but you're not. I've got the eye spasms and twitchings that I've told you about. Dry mouth. My mouth is as dry as a. I'll use a nice phrase, as dry as a nun's knickers in the Sahara Desert. Another crude expression, but I wake up and I'm clawing. Sometimes I've had to go and get up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water because my mouth gets so dry I can't breathe properly. I've gained weight. My appetite has gone through the roof, but in the mornings I can't eat, and that's been a problem for a while that doctors have not addressed. They haven't helped me out with that whatsoever. They've put me on drugs to decrease stomach acid. I haven't been drinking alcohol in nearly 6 months, so half a year, which is definitely going to help, but it's not the be all and end all. There's other things you have to do as well. I'm feeling very fed up. I'm also getting twitches, like muscle spasms in general, not just in the eyes. Had difficulty dropping off and going to sleep a few nights. My depression's been worse at times as well. My motivation's not been great. Though I have been playing football, cycling, swimming, the propranolol is what caused me to feel negatively about my chest pains and all. I thought I was going to die, so that wasn't good. Yeah, just lust for life has gone way down, which has happened with every SSRI I've been on. Just trying to think of anything else. Stomach upset has been another one. Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I just haven't even the energy sometimes to deal with that. I'm trying to get out as much videos as I can, but look, there's been a lot tension in the eyes, dry eyes, and headaches. definitely. Just fatigue as well in general, just not feeling great or being easily tired after very little activity. So I don't know. I want to get off this stuff. I don't want to be on it. I don't think it's good. I was in a state of mind where I was like, I'll take anything to make me feel better. I think like, if I'm being honest, I think what's caused me to feel this way is the fact that I worked really hard for a degree that hasn't got me a job that I feel fulfilled by. I had to take the first thing I was offered because I wasn't getting any luck anywhere else. I was trying, I was sending out CVs or resumes, as it's called them in the States. And yeah, I had to settle for a job where I'm picking up dead animals in an alleyway. So you can understand. And that's a government scheme, so that's not a full wage, which is not great. I'm being spoken down to by little brat kids. You're really just like, is this going to be the rest of my fucking life? And hearing some of those stories, I worry for people, who are on them 26 years and not able to get off. I'm afraid I'll end up like that. No disrespect to anyone. I don't blame you. I blame the doctor 100% for putting you on that shit. And I know what it's like to feel so overwhelmed. And you're just at the point where you're like, I will take anything to ease the pain. And you do that, and it offers some relief. Yeah, like they're not all bad because if they were, we wouldn't take them. But I find they do more harm than good. And just to put it into context, like back in 2023, I was only half a year after completing my degree and had worked in jobs, had done full shifts. Like I was working a full, not 9 to 5, but the same hours. Would have been usually 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. shifts instead because I was working in kitchens which stay open later. Um, I'd gotten my degree and was still working. I was exercising, going to the gym. In 2023, not only did I start working in a pharmaceutical company, but I lost 13.6 kilos, and I did that while working night shifts. I talked about that, while traveling an hour and a half to 2 hours some days each way into work. So, not a hope in hell of me doing that now. Far less capable. And I was drinking at that time as well. So, left that and I felt disheartened. I felt like there's a lot of shit that I need to take care of that I hadn't. And now I'm just kind of feeling if I had to do those things now, I would not be able for them. I just wouldn't be able to cope. So that's not good. And if you're on this stuff for the rest of your life, you become dependent on medication. And I was popping clonidine, catapraise every time I felt anxious in work, taking 3 of them a day. And I was thinking that I didn't want to end up like people who had to take a Xanax before a meeting because they were anxious. That's how I was going. And I don't think I'm any better than anybody. I think we all are sharing a struggle here. Only through sharing our own stories are we going to get anywhere because, unfortunately, the medical professional don't seem to give a shit, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, 7 months on Mirtazipine, 1 week, so 7 days on propranolol, a new drug. I'm not optimistic going to the doctors or psychiatrists now. I used to be very optimistic and hope that I'd get some relief, but I feel like you have to just kind of do this yourself. But having the tools to do that is important, and people sharing their experiences does help. And obviously, you guys are benefiting, Cynthia Wells. You told me how much you're benefiting from me sharing my medication story, so I'll keep doing that and hopefully get out of this self pity and rage cycle that I'm in at the moment. So bear with me, guys. I'm always aiming to help everybody out by just sharing my story. So share yours. Let me know how you found it. Even if you've already done it before, I find if we have more comments recently, people will look at it and think, fuck, that's me. I'm not alone. So you can help someone. All right. Please share them and hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Slán go fóill. take care of yourselves, mind yourselves, and you know, always question medical advice. Never just take anything as a given because you can't. You have to advocate for yourself in this, unfortunately, you know. But I'll be there with you. You know, I'll be happy to help out in any way I can. Be spreading some knowledge. So see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.